Judicial reform is not merely a matter of administrative efficiency. It is an urgent imperative for the future of South Africa's democracy. However, difficulties including severe case backlogs, outdated infrastructure and perceptions of inefficiency and corruption threaten to erode public trust and undermine the social compact that holds the nation together. Yesterday, Minister of Justice Mamoloko Kubayi participated in dialogue on the topic. Advocacy Officer at Judges Matter, Mbekezeli Benjamin, joins us now to tell us more. Mbekezeli, appreciate your time. Good to speak to you as always. Just give us a narrative of how your conversation or that conversation went yesterday with the Minister of Justice.
Good afternoon, Hugo, and good afternoon to the viewers. Yesterday, we were honored to have Minister Mamoloko Kubayi come to speak to us about the issue of judicial independence and the governance reforms within the judiciary. You recall, Hugo, there have been public outcry about how long cases are taking to go through the judicial system, how there are efficiencies, and on the other side, judges and magistrates are complaining that they are under-resourced and they're not supported enough in the work that they want to do, because they do want to deliver justice to ordinary people. But the problem is the under-resourcing. And one of the proposals that has been put forward to address some of those problems is to grant the judiciary greater independence over its institutional operations. The President Ramaphosa in June this year announced that his government will officially now take that process forward. They will try to establish the judiciary fully as an independent institution that can be in charge of its own budgets, its own staffing, on issues of infrastructure, including IT, security, and other related infrastructure. So the minister's discussion yesterday, we were trying to get what that actually looks like, to get the details of what that proposal looks like. What are the plans coming from the presidency, the Department of Justice, and other related departments like Public Works and Finance? And the minister did give a outline that it will be a phased approach towards achieving that full institutional independence.
Because I want to look at two issues. There's a soft side, or what I'll call the soft side, and the hard side, which speaks to issues around public works, for instance. So there have been multiple conversations over the last 30 years since the dawn of democracy on, I mean, if we talk about water infrastructure, for instance, the question in the city of Joburg or similar areas is, what are the infrastructure upgrades that have been created for the multitudes that have now come into Johannesburg? So similarly, what infrastructure have more courts been built? Are more magistrates, more judges been employed since 30 years ago? Just walk us through where we stand as far as that is concerned.
Yeah, Hugo, in the last 30 years, there has been progress in terms of building infrastructure, appointing more judges and magistrates for our courts. So, for example, in 1994, there was one court in Gauteng that served the provinces of the Mpumalanga, Limpopo, and even parts of the Northwest. Right now, there is a fully fledged High Court division in Mpumalanga with court buildings in Middelburg and Mbombela. There's a fully fledged Limpopo division of the High Court in Polokwane and also Thohoyandou. So that infrastructure has been built over the last 30 years. But unfortunately, what we've seen in the last 10 to 15 years is there's been a stalling of that progress. I mean, we still need more courts, but the money or the budget available for building those courts hasn't been forthcoming as well as it should. And so we're sitting with some of those older court buildings falling apart and the infrastructure not being able to carry the kind of caseloads that the courts are experiencing. The other difficulty is just the manpower or the work staff to man the courts. In the last 15 years, for example, there's hardly been any increase in the number of judges available in our courts. In Gauteng, since 2009, there have been 80 judges for Pretoria and Johannesburg. When we know that the population of Gauteng has grown by more than 50%, that means there is more and more work coming to the courts and fewer people to handle that workload. And so that is those are some of the conversations that we were hoping to tease out with the minister. Luckily, she was frank to say there is an issue of resources, but what the government is prioritizing now is making sure that some of the resources that are available are spent more efficiently. They are targeted to those areas that are in high priority. And also, there is a move towards increasing the number of judges available. She said that in October, she will be presenting a plan in cabinet progress, and that plan will follow. She will announce it publicly in following from that. And so we are expecting that we will see at least a plan to say in the next year or two, or even 5 years, this is the number of judges that will be increased in the system.
So what's the minimum viable version of judicial independence? I mean, what would change outcomes within the next 12 months?
Look, traditionally, judicial independence has looked at the inability of individual judges to take their judgments free from any influence. And that, I think, South Africa is a world leader in terms of individual independence of our judicial officers. I mean, there have been many, many cases that have gone against very powerful people, including the president and the government. So we don't have a problem of that kind of individual independence. The issue has been the institutional independence of the judiciary, in that traditionally, the judiciary has relied a lot on the executive, the Minister of Justice, for example, on issues of budgets, on issues of staffing, of issues of court infrastructure. And over the last 15 years, there have been moves towards granting the judiciary greater institutional independence. But from the evidence, it seems as if that process stalled somewhere in 2015, 2016, and there hasn't been progress towards achieving that institutional independence. Right now, we were pleased to see the president announcing that he is restarting that process and hoping that in the next few months to a couple of years, there will be a greater move to that institutional independence. And you asked what would be the difference in the next 12 months. Well, what the minister has said is that in the next 12 months, they will try to move some of the shared services that are currently held by the DOJ into the Office of the Chief Justice, which is the national government department responsible for the superior courts. And what those shared services include are stuff like infrastructure, subscription to software platforms and library platforms, because those are the basic tools of trade. We have been complaining about how slow judgments are coming out of the courts. And one of those problems has been that the library access or access to legal resources has been a problem. And so we're hoping that in the next 12 months, that will be a problem that is resolved, and we're seeing more judgments coming out of the courts. But it is a massive undertaking at the same time, Hugo. If this proposal that is put forward is fully implemented, it means more than 45% of the Department of Justice's budget will move from the DOJ into the OCJ, and that's about 20-something billion rand. And so it's not small change. And so it will be a phased approach that will be rolled out over the next couple of years.
Mbekezeli, the minister announced a couple of days ago that she was going to be speaking to the police ministry around practical steps to stop weapons from entering court and obviously protection around those issues. Just walk us through that conversation if it was had, and certainly if there has been any conversation on the security around personnel coming out of the magistrates or judges' offices.
Yeah, so security is a very big issue, Hugo, especially in the last couple of months, where we've seen incidents of people being killed or shot near court buildings. And it's something that even in our own research, when we did a survey in 2023, looking at magistrates across the country, more than a third of the respondents said that they were either threatened or harmed because of their job. And so safety is a huge issue, and this was also raised in our conversation with the minister yesterday about safety and security to individual judges and magistrates, but also around the court precincts and the court buildings. And the minister said that, look, the current framework, they do provide security to judges in the higher courts, and there is a massive increase in the security that is provided in the court buildings themselves. But some of those, there have been challenges in the fact that, for example, metal detectors would not be working at specific courts. There will be issues of the lack of private contracted security. They will not send enough people to be at those courts. And so that is something that she says is a challenge that they are looking to prioritize. That's why they're roping in the Minister of Police to also assist in that. But it's something that I think, because it's a national challenge, it won't be easy for them to simply give a blanket answer on some of those things, because each court has its own security risks and security complexities that make it hard to do a blanket approach. But it seems the commitment is that they will be looking at those courts that are high priority and trying to address some of the issues that have arisen in the last couple of months.
Now, let's talk about backlogs, because there are cases that have been going on for many, many years. Senzo Mayiwa case, for instance, been going for longer than a decade. And I'm sure when cases go that long, they eat up into capacity of the courts, and obviously those backlogs increase. Was that a conversation that was had, and what are the proposals on dealing with existing backlogs?
Yeah, the backlogs issue is a huge problem. And in fact, it undermines public trust in the courts. And it's something that we have also raised with the Chief Justice to say we have a massive problem with the backlogs. And it seems as if there are really two issues here. I mean, there are backlogs when it comes to the enrollment of cases. So cases coming actually before a magistrate or a judge. That is a problem on its own. One of the ways in which that problem has come about is just lawyers taking long to finalize the court papers and get the case ready. But also the issue of trial dates, and that's why we need more judges to get more and more trial dates in a much quicker way. So there's that problem. But there's also problems of cases being postponed multiple times. And that, again, there are multiple factors, but one of the factors on that issue is issues of court infrastructure, court recording machines breaking down that necessitate postponement. But there's other issues of lawyers not showing up, for example, or investigations not being completed. And what the minister promised was to say, they have looked at this very closely when it comes to, for example, the NPA, trying to get the NPA to move a little bit quicker in terms of getting prosecutions moving in a much faster way. But where there's issues of infrastructure, they have tried to partner with the Department of Justice, Department of Public Works, because one of the proposals of this judicial independence is that more of the functions that currently reside under the Department of Public Works would be moved to the judiciary itself. And that includes issues like minor maintenance. The minister made mention of in courts where there are no reliable water provision, and ideas of drilling boreholes in some of those rural courts to service those courts. And so it's a massive undertaking as well. There are multiple factors at play. But what we at least can take from the conversation we had from the minister is that they are looking at the issue of court infrastructure. We are still concerned that in the immediate term, we do want more judges, more magistrates in the court, because that is one way to deal with some of the big problems when it comes to backlogs.
Justice and Constitutional Development Minister Mamoloko Kubayi had a webinar yesterday in which Judges Matter was part of it, and Mbekezeli Benjamin from Judges Matter speaking to us about some of those issues that were discussed yesterday.